Here we have our Battle of Britain 1940 wargame with the RAF up against the Luftwaffe again. We'll be using Axis and Allies Angels 20 rules, and here we can see one of the RAF taking off from his airdrome. These are the little information cards that have all the statistics and data for the individual aircraft in the game. And here we can see the start positions with the Luftwaffe coming in over the channel and the RAF taking off from their airfields in the south east of England. Here's the Spitfire getting up off the ground. And also a Hurricane as well, getting ready to engage the incoming Germans. Here we can see the bombers. Their targets are a couple of airfields, and if they can get there, London. Here we see the German escort fighters breaking off in search of the RAF, and the dogfighting starts pretty much immediately. The purple dice on the bases indicates the altitude that the planes are currently at. So to engage, you either have to be at the same altitude or diving down to that altitude or climbing up to the altitude that the enemy is at. Here we can see the Luftwaffe getting stuck in on one of the RAF Hurricanes, who's picked up some damage. And this plane is going to be fairly close to being shot down if he's not too careful. The Luftwaffe bomber has managed to break through and is now heading towards one of the airfields in the hope that he can get a successful bombing run. And we get some fairly heavy dogfighting going on here with one of the German escort planes picking up some damage as well. Unfortunately for one of the airfields, he's been successfully bombed by the Luftwaffe, who now moves on to his second target. And the Luftwaffe pilots also now getting some more hits on the RAF. A couple of RAF planes go off in chase of the bomber, try and stop him before he gets to the next airfield, and in trying to do so, unfortunately gets shot down by one of the Luftwaffe escort planes, who in turn is then shot down himself and actually crash lands straight into the airfield that's just been bombed. The RAF, pursuing off after the Luftwaffe bomber, is now inflicting quite some heavy damage on him, but unfortunately, because the RAF aircraft are concentrating on shooting down the bombers, are picking up heavy damage themselves from the Luftwaffe escorts. And even though the bombers are getting quite heavily damaged, the RAF planes are steadily being shot down. And unfortunately, at the end of the game, it's victory for the Luftwaffe. We also have a Star Wars Skirmish between the Rebel Alliance and the Galactic Empire. We're using the Star Wars X-Wing miniatures game system, and we decided just to have a couple of craft in the game. We had the TIE Fighter and a TIE Fighter Advanced up against the Rebel Alliance in one of their Y-Wings, and the good old-fashioned X-Wing. Now with this game system, you have to decide what your manoeuvre is going to be before you actually do anything, and then everybody has to reveal what their manoeuvre is, and then you start moving around the board And if you manage to get into a position where you can fire or lock onto the enemy, you have to start then putting down the appropriate counters to show what's happening. Just get some initial manoeuvring, and here we can see the X and Y wing getting into quite close proximity with each other, whilst the Galactic Empire TIE fighter tries to sort of manoeuvre his way around their flank and get behind them, whilst his TIE fighter advanced mate just really goes straight for them. Rebel Alliance pilots trying to get around onto the tail of the Galactic Empire craft, and here we can see somebody's craft has now been locked up, and they now start to get into dogfighting mode and begin firing at each other. Unfortunately for the Rebel Alliance, the TIE fighters manage to get around their side and starts firing into their flank, but fortunately doesn't cause any damage immediately. And here we just see the spacecraft getting into position to try and shoot at each other again after some more manoeuvring. So far the rebels are having the better of it. They're managing to shoot and hit the Empire ships, which are quite lightly armoured and don't have shields, which makes them a bit more vulnerable. And here, unfortunately, we see the TIE Advanced has been destroyed after taking several hits from the X and the Y wing, who now concentrate solely on trying to shoot down their remaining TIE fighter. TIE fighter tries to use his manoeuvrability to try and bring down one of the rebel ships, but unfortunately he fails and he's ultimately destroyed as well.